you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Big day, big day. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. It's Wednesday, August 12th with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me at People's_Pundit on Twitter right there if you don't already. So Team Biden has chose Kamala Harris as the vice presidential running mate, making history. It's the first vice presidential nominee ever to be denounced by daddy, right? All right, so the media is going to do their usual. All right, they're going to do what the media do, and we're just going to roll into what we do, which is look, there's a general consensus. Here's my initial reaction, all right, to answer everybody on Twitter. This was not a good pick. All right, it was the pick, like I told you yesterday. It was the pick. They couldn't roll out the vice presidential announcement correctly. They botched it. And then Team Chris Dodd, which was against Kamala Harris being Joe Biden's running mate, tried to derail her. And in fact, it looked like she was being derailed. And the general consensus in DC yesterday was that Susan Rice would be the pick, that he caved. I'm thinking and hearing, and I kind of believe what I'm hearing, that last minute letter might have had some sway on it, but it was, the story is what a show it was during this rollout process. And during a normal election year, they would tell you that. But they're not going to, because the goal of the media today in this day and age and in this election is not to tell the story that is the story, the actual factual story. The job of the media is to tell Joe Biden and now Kamala Harris's story in the narrative that they want to tell it. All right. And because we're having what is like a quasi-election, no conventions, no campaigning, they're going to tell the story the way they want to tell it. So it is our job to tell you the real story. And that is the real story. So they botched it. I told you yesterday, the AP looking at his notes, it was not a head fake. It's Joe Biden losing steam because Joe Biden is losing steam. All right. And then it looked like for a while that had been derailed. So it was a fight between the group of people who thought that Joe Biden needed to pick someone who has, look, it's just real. I'm not making a political statement here. The woman has no real core. She has political ambition, and that's it. And we're going to talk. He picked her. It's on him, or they picked her. But we are going to talk about Kamala Harris's career and how she got to where she got to be. All right. And we're going to talk about the people who got left in the wake on the way there. She changes with the winds, with the political winds. There is no real core there. Chris Dodd was worried about that because she's all political ambition, no loyalty, and no principle. That is what Team Dodd was worried about. And then you had the National Security Wing, who really are behind a lot of this stuff that you saw in the first 2-3 years of the Trump administration, which was nothing but lies. So, the problem Joe Biden had here is that he boxed himself in a corner early on, trying to pretend like he was the woke of the woke. He committed himself to picking a woman, which was narrow. Obviously, it limits your scope. It does when you box yourself in. Not that there weren't qualified women to choose from. There were. But then what happens when you cave to the woke left like that is that they push even further. Okay, well, we got him to commit to a woman. Now we want him to commit to a black woman. And he caved to that because Joe Biden is not the Joe Biden 4 years ago. All right. And it's not even the Joe Biden. It's the people around Joe Biden. And so that is the real story. That's how this process worked. The problem is, like I said, the media is not going to tell you this story, but this was really a rather amateur hour kind of show. It was one mistake after another. And I'm not, just looking at the overall state of the race here, folks, I'm not seeing, and the general consensus among Republicans, they're doing cartwheels. Republicans are doing cartwheels. The general consensus is that Kamala Harris was a mistake, a big mistake. And I got to tell you, whether Joe Biden wins or loses, typically the top of the ticket has to do the legwork. They have to drag themselves across the finish line. They have to make their own case to voters. But because a majority, and they know this, they've pulled this themselves, because a majority does not really expect Joe Biden to be president for long, this pick actually matters this time. And there was a reason Kamala Harris didn't make it to vote counting. I know some people yesterday, in response to what I tweeted, brought up the example of Joe Biden being picked by Barack Obama. Look, in the case of 2008, Joe Biden was the all Barack Obama had to do. He could bring himself across the finish line. There was no problem with that. He was a fan. Are we really comparing Barack Obama to Joe Biden? He's one of the most talented campaigners and politicians of the last 100 years. Whether you like him or not, Barack Obama had it. His justification was solid and set in stone. All he needed was a pick that could ease some, man, we don't know this guy. He's young. Maybe he's a little bit too left-wing for me, possibly. He's a little idealistic. I would feel safer if he picked a traditional moderate. I would feel a little bit better with that. That's how you get states of Indiana to shift your way. North Carolina, even though those studies showed that those really were illegal residents that pushed him over the line in North Carolina in 2008. And then even almost Missouri. That was his job as a candidate back then, to pick somebody to give everybody a little bit of, okay, all right, okay. And Donald Trump, same thing with Mike Pence. Midwest guy, hoaxy, fits the narrative of Donald Trump's justification in 2016, but he made a little people uncomfortable, especially conservatives. And Mike Pence was the guy who was, very typical conservative, had been around. So he calmed down the Ryan wing, even though they abandoned them anyway, because they're cowards and traitors with no core. So if you think I'm just picking on Kamala, I'm not a pick on everyone. I'm an equal opportunity basher over here at Inside the Numbers. All right. That was Donald Trump's job. He did it well. Joe Biden's job was to pick somebody who everybody could say, okay, that makes me comfortable. Let's say Joe Biden doesn't make it 6 months, 12 months, 36, whatever. Who's going to take the reins of the White House? All right, I will feel comfortable with somebody like that. He picked somebody who was the most unlikable so-called top-tier candidate in the 2020 Democratic nomination field. That is the truth. That's the bottom line, folks. That woman polled so badly. All right. She was unlikable. It was like really nice. Oh, like you get past, what's that expression they got about Kamala? There's an actual expression. Like she's real nice until you get to know her kind of thing. And then she, the shine wears off. All right. in the debates, as the debates went on, she came across, as Kamala came across, that the blue check marks love her. Verified Twitter loves her. But verified Twitter does not represent the American electorate. I hate to break your guys' hearts, but it's true. All right, you don't. And then the debates went on, and she ticked off a lot of Democrats who liked Joe Biden by doing what she did to Joe Biden, which was accuse him of being a racist. You worked with racists, you praised racists, you opposed busing. Remember that? That little girl was me. Remember that? The blue checks loved that. Well, America hated it. It was a cheap shot. It showed she was a very ambitious, nasty woman. Such a nasty woman, right? Donald Trump says, such a nasty woman. Look, and the media went nuts over saying it, but this is how regular Americans perceive people, folks. That's how they perceive politicians. And she took a dive after that. So the shine, the media boost, the media handicap, which I'm going to show you. You want to see how hard they're pushing for Kamala? You want to see how much they're willing to do for Kamala? I'll show you in a little bit. But that shine wore off, and she tanked. And that was a wrap. And then it was over before she really knew it was over. And the New York Times, now writing glowing pieces about her, they hit the death knell. They wrote the death knell, which was a story when her campaign collapsed about how disorganized it was, how out of control it was, how disloyal people were. She's got family members. They're all taking their piece of the pie. And nobody's doing what's right for the candidate. And she's just kind of blah-zee-da, letting it go because at this point she doesn't care. It's an enterprise, not a campaign. It was a blistering piece. And the old adage, the oldest adage in modern American politics, if you can't run a presidential campaign, you cannot run a White House. That is the oldest adage in modern presidential politics. And then we all know hat tip town hall, hat tip Twitchy, hat tip, I think red state. We all know the moment her campaign ended for sure.
Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president. But I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place. That impacts poor people in the worst kind of way. When you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Oof. And yeah, I already did the hat tip. We don't need the hat tip at the end. All right. It's no secret to people who know me. I love Tulsi Gabbard. Okay. If she did anything during that campaign, she absolutely destroyed her, and that was a wrap. But what was so effective and what makes this stuff so effective? And we talked about this last week when we talked about, her being, the pick until last minute attempts to derail her by the Rice and other wing of Team VP, right? Team Biden VP committee. Those criticisms are true. And when criticisms are true and you can level them and launch attacks using them as a basis for the attack, it's deeply, deeply, like Tulsi says, it's effective. And it worked and it ended it. It was over that moment. And then they just kind of went on autopilot for a while. And, it was, how bad are we going to lose Iowa? Well, we'll make a comeback in New Hampshire, but we didn't make a comeback in New Hampshire. So, we can't make a comeback. The polls are souring on us in New Hampshire. You know what? Maybe we can make it all the way to California. And maybe by the time we get to California, we can wage a comeback. That was always a bit of a joke, folks, because Bernie was always going to take California. That was always going to happen. And that, this idea that you could wait and do the Rudy Giuliani strategy where you wait until the favorable state for you comes out, that is not how elections work. Joe Biden kind of bucked the trend, being the only nominee to ever get, or he'll be the nominee, the only one to ever get the nomination, who placed no better than fourth in the first 3 contests. That is because of the unprecedented effort to paint Bernie as an unelectable socialist who will get killed by Donald Trump. So now the bottom line here is it is now Trump versus Harris. And if you're Republicans, you have to be stoked about this. Why? I'm going to show you. Harris, when she ran for the district attorney's office, all right, in San Francisco, we don't need to even talk about how Harris even became the district attorney. I know you all know the story, and I'm not going to go there. There's too much more to talk about than to go to that. All right. We all know she's politically ambitious, and that is who she is. She was running against someone that was seen as too progressive and not tough enough on crime. All right. She broke rules. She had a pledge, which eventually she got fined for this, that she would not raise it past a certain amount. There is so much we're going to have to spend every show to talk about something about Kamala Harris in order to fully explain and vet Kamala Harris. I'm sure they did a job vetting. They just think that the media will help them so much that it doesn't matter. In the end, she did get fined, whatever. She made it to a runoff. She wins the runoff, and her office becomes a place where low income to average colored folks get overly prosecuted, like Tulsi Gabbard said, so she can tell her rich gentry friend and rich and gentry liberal friends that she's being tough on crime. Don't worry, your neighborhood will be safe. And donors with slumlords and filthy priests with sticky hands, sticky fingers don't get prosecuted because they gave money to her office. And I'm sure the Biden campaign knows all about this. So there will be stories coming about how she treated people favorably. If the goal is to get out people in minority communities that didn't come out maybe for Hillary Clinton, were not excited about Hillary Clinton. You can tell from the polling and from the reporting, they are not excited about Joe Biden. The Democrat electorate is in South Carolina, especially, which is what everybody makes hay over. The African-American Democratic primary electorate in South Carolina does not even represent the black electorate in a general election. They're super, super more active, more liberal, more engaged. In Wayne County, in Detroit, right? They were not at all excited to vote for Joe Biden. He's struggling to get out of the low 80s. It's a problem. And some polls are even worse. They are absolutely worried about Donald Trump pulling like 12%, 13%, because if those white bourbonites run back to Donald Trump toward the end, which they did in 2016, all right, Hillary Clinton was doing very well, even in our own polling. It was at the end, they just said, you know what, I can't go for this woman. And they shockingly voted for him at higher rates than people expected. He did better among the Wisconsin suburban white moderate than any poll ever expected him to do. And then he crushed it among the working class. And then she had lower turnout among the minority community. That's what they're worried about. Basically a deja vu. And I read you the letter from black men. They call themselves leaders of the community. I don't think Sean Diddy Combs is a leader in the black community. He is, however, he's such a joke. Such a joke. I've never seen Sean Diddy Combs in an American ghetto. Sorry, I've never seen it. All right. So anyway, right. The bottom line is, I'm not sure that this pick does that. She has been willing to cast aside the law and order thing. And here's the double-edged sword. This is the stuff that pisses off what I'm going to show you. This is the stuff that pisses off those suburban voters who may not be willing to tell a pollster they don't buy this stuff, right? But they're also afraid to say, like, no, I don't support Black Lives Matter, right? Black Lives Matter. This is something, and let me just get the date, just so I make sure I get this right. You guys know how much I loathe this freaking lie about Michael Brown and Ferguson. All it did was get the city burned to the ground. All it did was cause racial strife and division. It wasn't true. And yet multiple Democratic politicians, including Joe Biden's own Twitter account, he knows it was his Justice Department. It was his Justice Department under a black attorney general that debunked this myth. I almost cursed. I almost dropped a bomb. Did you catch that? That's how much this stuff, I can't stand this stuff. So Kamala Harris goes from being top cop, top super cop, willing to tough on crime, to tweeting stuff like this right before she gets, because now she's running for president. Okay. This is August 9th, 2019. Michael Brown's murder, folks, his murder forever changed Ferguson and America. Yeah. Oh, it changed Ferguson, lady. It burned it to the ground. And hurting, by the way, disproportionately minority small business owners who are law-abiding citizens who want to get up in the morning, go to work 9 to 5, make a living, and enjoy their life, their faith, and their family. That's how it changed Ferguson. His tragic death sparked a desperately needed conversation and a national movement. And then she goes on, we must fight for stronger accountability and racial equality in our justice system. That is a lie. Michael Brown was not murdered. Michael Brown was shot in self-defense by Officer Darren Wilson because he physically assaulted a store clerk, and then went on his way to run away. He got confronted. He saw a cop. He knew it was going to be on, and he tried. And we didn't try. He assaulted Officer Darren Wilson and then attempted to take his firearm, and he was shot in self-defense by it was a lawful shoot by a police officer whose life was ruined by liars like Kamala Harris, who told the nation for votes, because this is only for votes. This is not to help the black community. This is for votes. That's it. They don't care about you, me, them, him, her.
Ambition.
It's ambition. It's quite consistent with Kamala Harris's record in the political sphere. She will do and say whatever Kamala Harris has to do and say. And if you remember now, the media breathlessly, oh, Joe Biden's now a lock on the black vote. He's a lock. That's what they think of you, Black America. That's what they think of you. He's a lock. Just like Kamala Harris was going to be the one to challenge Joe Biden for the black vote in the primary. Harris never made it to a primary because she didn't have any black voter support. She got a bump from the media pushing her, Laura, and giving her that push. We love this one. Vote for her. You know, that's what they did. But it never came to fruition. She couldn't even get more than 7% in South Carolina. She was polling in the dookie among black voters. They rejected her. I am not clear how an Jamaican of Indian descent is going to lock up support in urban inner city African-American communities. I'm just not clear on it. It's an insult to them. It is an insult. Laura wants to say something. Be careful. She's oh, good. Oh boy. You muted your mic. You muted your mic. I can't unmute you. Yeah. Oh boy. It's the bigotry. It's the soft bigotry of low expectations where they don't actually have to earn the vote of the black community. They can throw a nugget at them like, oh, we picked a woman of color. All right, I think that's what Laura wants to say. So hold on. I'm going to shut up. I can't hear you, love. I can't hear you. You're on. Oh, that's my fault.
Good job. Can you hear me now?
Totally my fault. Yeah.
Okay, cool beans. So let's say by weird and crazy chances that somebody hailed from Puerto Rico once upon a time, right? And they picked that person as a VP. And to assume that just because they are of Hispanic descent means they automatically get my vote is an insult, not only to my heritage, but just to myself in general. Like, are we that small? But I realize that they do only look at us as commodities. And when they make that decision as a black voter, I wouldn't vote just on principle.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Laura was so pissed in 2016 going through WikiLeaks. John Podesta's like, I forgot who he was talking with, but he's like, it's needy Hispanics. They're so needy. Laura was so mad. It was so fun. She was needy, but that is the way, that is the mentality of the white liberal. And, it is the soft bigotry of low expectations. I just don't see it. And I said it as a joke in the beginning, but in fact, the real history maker here is, and she played a big role in the Russia collusion thing. That's a whole other, but that I don't think voters truthfully will really care about that. What voters will care about is that she is flip-flopped on every major issue that is going to be central in this election, as you know, right? The economy, she said that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act would add to the debt and deficit. She's now being critical of the payroll tax cut, even though she was supportive when Democrat administration, she that's out of the realm. She was just elected. She is like, they're comparing her to Barack Obama because she's a new senator. But Barack Obama didn't even flip-flop like this. He didn't even flip-flop. Honestly, guys, he flip-flopped later. But he didn't have this early of a career of flip-flopping, right? In healthcare, another big issue in this election. She was against Medicare for all, and then she was for Medicare for all, and she flip-flopped. I mean, in a 48-hour period, folks, and we covered it on PPD. In a 48-hour period, she went back and forth. She went 3 sides. She flipped 3 sides. I'm here. No, I'm here. No, I'm back here. And then, oh my goodness. And then the campaign started and she flipped back. That's right. Oh, wow. So 4 times, because the electorate for the Democratic primary does support Medicare for all. So at first she was like, no, I'm not for it, because it didn't poll well among the entire general election electorate. And then she got blowback, and it was, no, I do support it. And then she got blowback from the people saying, well, you got to pivot. You got to pivot back in a general for a general. Don't move too far to the left. So she goes back. Then the primary starts. Bernie's the flavor du jour again, and she flips back again. But the crime and policing issue is going to be a serious, serious problem for her. And if you think, by the way, that this was the pick to like not scare back, how to put this, but they want disaffected Republicans who, didn't like Hillary, didn't like Trump, but could not vote for Hillary Clinton. So they held their nose and they voted for Donald Trump. Okay. They wanted those disaffected. We're talking about a very small number of people here as the overall electorate, but you win elections by cobbling together coalitions. All right. This is not the pick to do it. All right. And people think, oh, well, folks, this is a picture. Hold on 1 second. This is a picture of Kamala Harris with Alexander Soros. If you want to win these Republicans, maybe don't cheerlead for her so much that you're on there shaking hands with the boogeyman of the right? George Soros is the boogeyman of the right. And here's actually, you know what? Not as an ideologue, but an actual thinker. When I see this, George Soros's involvement, the Soros family, their real involvement in American politics, what nobody sees is really at the local and state level. And he had a big hand in 2018 with some of these DAs now that we're seeing that are, in Missouri, by the way, she was one of them, was prosecuting a family for defending their own property with firearms against a crowd that was going to destroy their home. That's a George Soros pick. So she used to be a DA. And here you have a DA, a former DA, shaking hands with Alexander Soros. I mean, if you want to scare these people back to Donald Trump, this would be the way to do it. I just don't understand. And what does this do for young people? You got to get these young people to the polls. She didn't win. She had no support among the youth voter in this election. And I also would just like to read a couple of these other ones. All right. August 9th, 2016. The truth is that too many black women and men like Michael Brown have died at the hands of law enforcement. August 9th, 2020. 6 years ago, Michael Brown was killed at the hands of police, sparked a nationwide movement and a desperately I know what I found here. I didn't even realize it. I just started racking them up. She used the word murdered and then backtracked, but I grabbed it and then said 6 years ago he was killed. She tried to change the word murdered. Just goes to show you, folks. It just goes to show you. So she freaking knows the evidence doesn't support that he was murdered. And of course, I know this. I mean, we all know this, that the evidence doesn't support Michael Brown was murdered by Officer Darren Wilson, but she doesn't care. And she'll just reword it. It's verbatim the same tweet I read to everybody before. Here we go. June 10th, 2020. Real recent. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice. I am sorry. Atiana Jefferson, and countless others. How many more times must our communities, like she lives with these communities. You live with the gated white liberal. You don't live in this community. How many more times must our communities be put through the trauma of another black man or woman killed at the hands of police? Passing our Justice and Policing Act can't wait. All right. And she has another one that's very much like that. The truth is that too many black men and women, just like the other time. And then she hashtags Michael Brown, say their names. Okay. Unbelievable. And very key to the Smollett hoax. Very big on the small. That's right. She and Cory Booker played a key role in the juicy Smollett hoax because they were trying to pass. And folks, don't you find this a little convenient? This man comes out with a hoax about being lynched when they're trying to pass a federal anti-lynching act bill that, according to our analysis, they never even needed. And can we bring this up? Okay, yeah, because this is Kamala. Yeah, well, I want to bring this up. I'm sidetracking here. It's 10:32. You know what? We'll look at it after the damn little spiel. Don't forget to subscribe to Inside the Numbers on People's Pundit Daily on YouTube. All right. And then also don't forget to like the page People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. You guys can follow me on Twitter right there if you don't already, which I'm sure most of you do. Okay. Ultimately, the way to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. You'll get great economic indicators, which are going to go over 2 of them on the show a little later. And you're going to get stuff like what I'm about to show you right now. So rewind to February of 2019. And there's this push for anti-lynching legislation. Juicy Smollett. All right. Juicy Smollett does this thing, right, where he fakes basically being lynched, an attempted lynching by Trump supporters in Chicago. All right. Of course, there was red hat wearing Trump supporters in Chicago. Obviously, there are no red hat wearing Trump supporters in the inner city of Chicago. Right? So obviously, this was a fraud. All right. But the media didn't think so. And they ran with it. Of course, they always do. Right. And Cory Booker and Kamala Harris, who had this is the thing, folks, you got to remember, it is February 2019. Neither one of these candidates have any legislation under their belt that they could call accomplishments of their tenure to speak of. They are IOU senators. What do I mean by that? What's an IOU senator? It's a senator that doesn't really draft legislation or push any or champion any issue whatsoever. They do nothing. They're Charlie Wilsons of the Senate. All they do is rack up IOUs. So they vote for everybody else's legislation. So when it's scratch your back, I scratch mine kind of thing. All right. And if you guys have read Our Virtuous Republic, you know why this matters when it comes to the 1617 Amendment, how we got to being career politicians in this country instead of being part-time servants of the public. All right. But anyway, I digress. That's a bigger story. All right. She did nothing but vote for other people's legislation so she could say, I voted for yours. Then later when I have something, you can vote for mine. They are IOU lawmakers. All right. She was pushing this anti-lynching bill because she had no accomplishments. And I'm going to skip down real quick. At Juicy Smollett is one of the kindest, most gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for his quick recovery. This was an attempted modern day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront this hate. January 29, 2019. She had no freaking idea whether this story was true. Juicy knows a lot of political actors, big hitting political. Michelle Obama, Maxine Waters, Kamala Harris. These are like buddies, okay? And then don't you find it a little bit curious? They have no lynchings to speak of. She needs a bill, Laura. She's done nothing in the Senate. She has done nothing in the United States Senate. She has no accomplishments. So she puts together what is called, and I want to make sure I get it right. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? It is I was like some long, you know how they typically do these names, like the Justice for Lynching Victims Act or something. All right. I want to read this. Bear with me, folks, because I do want to read it. So my whole thing was, I know she's an IOU senator. Cory Booker is an IOU senator. And it's true, Tim Scott jumped on this bandwagon. A Republican senator from South Carolina, an African-American Republican senator from South Carolina. So it's really, you know, I understand why he'd want to get involved in this effort. But I'm thinking to myself, is there a lynching epidemic in this country? Many lynchings going on lately? Are we a racist country who still lynches black people? I'm serious. So I'm like, all this stuff is going on. I'm like, I'm about to dig into this, man. I'm going to go FBI statistics, crime statistics, the diving today, and we're going to get on this. I spent about 3 days researching it, and I wrote this article. Does empirical evidence suggest the U.S. needs anti-lynching legislation? Or, as I'm insinuating here with my crafty little title, folks, is Kamala Harris a coreless, politically ambitious scam artist who is using this to scare people and get some kind of legislative achievement under her belt because she has nothing? So you may be shocked to find out that the data on lynchings strongly indicates that politicians hype fear for political gain. That was my nice way of saying, what a freaking fraud. Actor and Empire star Juicy Smollett was charged with a class 4 felony after he allegedly staged a hate crime, specifically beating him and attempting lynching. While it was the lowest felony classification, it carries a potential sentence 1 to 3 years in prison. We all know Juicy, with all of his political friends, is not going to get any serious consequence for this. 2 top 2020 Democratic presidential candidates used the apparent hate crime hoax to push anti-lynching legislation known as the Justice for Victims of Lynching Act. That's what it is. Senator Kamala Harris, D. Cory Booker, DNJ, have no sponsored legislation to speak of or to tout on the campaign trail. They rushed to Twitter and to judgment, hoping to advance the bill in the U.S. Congress. And I read you what she wrote, what Kamala Harris wrote. The very next day, she tweeted that passing a, quote, this is the very next day after her Juicy Smollett tweet. She tweets, a federal anti-lynching law must be a priority for the new Congress. Lynching is a dark and despicable part of our nation's history, yet it is still not a federal hate crime. I thought murder was a crime in all 50 states. Passing a federal anti-lynching law must be a priority for this new Congress. It's certainly true, folks, that lynching is a dark and despicable part of our nation's history, but Juicy brought lynchings back into the national discussion. There was no need. Was there a need here? Let's look at the empirical evidence. The last clear-cut case of lynching in the United States was 1981. Nearly 4 decades ago was the lynching of Michael McDonald in Mobile, Alabama, and was the last traditionally defined case of lynching according to the FBI. Michael McDonald, a young African-American man, was beaten and murdered by several members of the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK. They hung his body from a tree, the very perceived definition of a lynching. Did the justice system work for Michael McDonald? It absolutely did. I'm not going to go through the whole spiel here, all right? But Henry Francis Hayes was convicted by a jury of his peers. He was the ringleader and sentenced to death. He was incarcerated and sat on death row in the Holman Correctional Facility in Escambia County, Alabama. In 1997, he was executed in the electrical chair. They fried him. They fried the man. He was the first to be executed in Alabama for a white on black crime since 1913, and the only KKK member to be executed during the 20th century for the murder of an African American. There are 2 ways to interpret those statistics. The first focuses only on the indisputable fact that this is a sad statistic, given the number of lynchings in the 1990s. But it is also evidence of in the 1900s. But it's also evidence of actual true progress. No one escaped justice. You can go and read it for yourself. They were all. The only one who did was because of his health. He wound up dying anyway. He collapsed in the courtroom. It was the old man. Okay? So what about lynchings pre-Michael McDonald? 1965, James Reeb. He was white. He was lynched in Selma. All right? In the parish of in Alabama. What was the reason for his lynching? Helping black people. Horrible crime. 1959, Mac Charles Parker. He was black in Pearl River. He was kidnapped. Look, there's no way to, I just want to say this as a caveat. He was lynched for the alleged crime of kidnapping and raping a white woman. However, this is in dispute. Okay, so before you say, well, some crazy justification, it is absolutely in dispute whether Mac Charles Parker even did that crime. All right? That's why we have a justice system. If he did do it, he should have been arrested and brought through the process of justice. So when you mock all of the people today who just want to string up people like Officer Darren Wilson, remember there was a time when they actually did string up people. But now is not that time. And that's my point to Kamala Harris, who used this dark and sadistic history, actually dark, and she sadistically used that history for political gain. 1955, obviously, we know the very famous case of Emmett Till. He was lynched for the crime of flirting with a white woman. 1954, Isidore Banks, black, being prosperous. That was his crime. Okay? But there's a case right before Michael McDonald in 1974, Marion Pizzico. He was lynched in Wayne County, Michigan. He was 54 years old and, quote, in the wrong place at the wrong time. The victim was the only victim of a lynching in the 1970s before Michael McDonald, and he also happened to be white. The Polish Jew was killed by young black men who were looking for a white victim to lynch. You have to be politically ambitious to the point of completely immoral to use something like this to launch a presidential campaign that ultimately failed. And I'm not going to do it. You know, we got about an hour, a little bit more today. But we will look at the rise of Kamala Harris in her city in California before she ever became a United States Senator from California. And you tell me whether this is just expected behavior for somebody who fits this kind of pattern. Now, I know the Biden people know all about the Catholic Church. We're going to get into it. I know the Biden people know all about the slumlords. We're going to get into them. And it's worse. Like I said over the weekend, I was having a conversation with someone. We're comparing notes and stories. There was no way the Biden team did not come across this. They simply believed that by picking Kamala Harris, it would have been a big enough gesture to shore up the black vote. November is going to prove or disprove whether or not that thinking is correct. All right. I am going to run into economic stuff because I know that you want to take your little questions, of course. And then we'll do the economic stuff. Then we'll take the break. And when we come back, we'll take some of those questions. We'll get into that. And then also I have a clip. This thing is genius. I'm telling you, this Trump clip is absolutely genius that they fired off. They obviously had Kamala Harris. They knew. They obviously had it in their repertoire, getting ready to shoot out in the event that he picked Kamala Harris. Susan Rice could have been equally as easy, by the way. But I actually think that Kamala Harris is a worse pick. Why? Because at least Susan Rice was national security advisor. She was a U.S. ambassador. She has some form of executive branch diplomatic experience. Being in the White House, being the president of the United States, you are the top diplomat in the country. Ultimately, you're the executive, the chief law enforcement officer. She has no experience to speak of. She's never even passed a meaningful piece of legislation. Now, I'd say neither did Obama. I hear all of you. Is Kamala Harris Barack Obama? Because right now, what we got is not Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Now that he has picked Kamala Harris, we have Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris. That is the showdown. And if Trump can't make that case, then he deserves to lose. Because we know from polling that the country knows Joe Biden is in the precarious situation that he is in. All right. So that would be on Donald Trump not to be able to make that case. All right. But I'm going to actually, before we get into the economics, play a few clips and you tell me whether or not this pick undoes all of this. Okay.
Point out some specific things, 6 of them, that we find inadequate about the president's plan. I think the president has to join us in making a significantly greater commitment to these 6 areas to stem the rising tide of violence in America. And that's what it is, violence. First, we have to join together to ensure that drug dealers are punished swiftly, surely, and severely. And in line with what the president is calling for, we have to hold every drug user accountable. Because if there were no drug users, there would be no appetite for drugs and there'd be no market for them. Let's take a look at what the real problem is. It's not just how many people are using drugs. As the president said, the number of people using drugs, cocaine in particular, is down in our country. That's true. But the violence associated with drugs is spewing out all over America. And that's terrible. I know it's hard to believe, but this very day, violent drug offenders will commit more than 100,000 crimes on this day alone. And the sad part is that we have no more police in the streets of our major cities than we had 10 years ago. And what the president proposes won't help much. What he proposes is no increase over what the Congress has already approved last year. In a nutshell, the president's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs.
I had to end it there. The violent thugs. There's not enough police on the street to catch these violent thugs. Does Kamala Harris undo that when you have Tulsi Gabbard dismantle her like that on a debate stage? Do you think Mike Pence is not going to be capable? I mean, he's a nicer kind of, like, he doesn't have that kind of style. Like, he's not an attack dog. But how is that going to look versus I did criminal justice reform with the president? Actually, Trump never, Pence, he never takes credit for anything. He always says something like, under the president's leadership, right? Under President Donald J. Trump's leadership. That's his spiel. That's always his spiel. We got through criminal justice reform to give people a second chance. You guys have long histories of persecuting and prosecuting people of color. Okay? And then it's just one after the other. I'm asking, while you listen to this stuff, think to yourself, because narratives matter when we talk about justifications. Does the choice of Kamala Harris with her record, does the choice of her as vice president undo all of these kinds of mistakes? And then the Trump campaign's ads that are coming out, Biden's all over TV. Trump is obviously going a more digital way. But some of these ads are really very effective. And I don't know why they're not on the air waves. He's obviously trying to save money. He's doing it a different way. That's Donald Trump. But it's still going to reinforce certain narratives. And here we go here. This one, the gentleman he's talking to here was actually on the letter yesterday we read to you.
Yes. And by the way, what you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
I mean, Kamala Harris, he just kind of shot himself in the foot there, because Kamala Harris is, look, and I know the media hates this. You point this out, you're instantly under attack. Kamala Harris is Indian and Jamaican. So if the African American community is not diverse, then how do you account for Kamala Harris? It's crazy. I mean, it's in their minds, and Laura's jotting something down. In their minds, somebody else who was on the list.
Well, thanks so much. That's really our time. I apologize.
You can't do that to black media.
I can't do that to white media and black media because my wife has to go on at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm in trouble.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have nothing.
Whoa, there's the you ain't black part. By the way, we won't be able to monetize this video because every time I show it to you, Charlemagne and the Breakfast Club run to YouTube, right? They do. It's just every time I show it to you. You know, the Breakfast Club says you use their clip. No kidding. You know, as long as it's 30 seconds or less, put up the little hat tip, then that's really all there is to it. All right. But then, of course, he doubled down on that diversity thing. Is Kamala Harris the candidate that's going to erase these concerns with these voters? I just don't know. And here's the thing anyway, Laura. Those voters were not really the ones that he had to make sure got to the polls. There's no slippage among the danger with younger minority voters is for them to just not show up. There's a danger with older minority voters to actually slip and vote. So as you see Biden doing better among white suburban voters, you are seeing Trump do better among minority older voters. And I'm just not sure that the Kamala Harris pick is the one to shore that up. Okay, because it's the working black man, age 45 and older. Actually, I mean, really, it's even younger than that. But the working black man who's not in the 18 to 29 really category, that is a serious problem. You know, so I'm not getting into that. I'm not doing that. That note is not going any. She's look, maybe she should do the show. I think they take her off in a second because that's it. She goes places where I'm gonna go. But I mean, I will, but I'm just not gonna do it without being like seriously prepared. You know. All right, we'll get into that later. Put it in the suggestion box. Okay, put it in the suggestion box. I'm looking at it from a political point of view. I'm just not seeing it, folks. I'm just not seeing it. And real quick, before we go to break, I have to get this for you. Where is it? There it is. What is the media handicap, you ask? What is the media handicap? Okay, this is a letter left-wing groups wrote to, and I know you can't read it. I'll put it in the thing. I'll zoom it in. I'll put it in the thing. If you want to read it yourself, knock yourself out. It's the left-wing groups from Fatima Goss-Graves, National Women's Law Center, NARAL, Planned Parenthood, the National Partnership for Women and Families, Supermajority, which is Cecile Richards, who used to be anyway, Planned Parenthood, Emily's List, Time's Up. All right. This is dated, by the way, August 6, 2020. Sound familiar? It should. Because this is when what they perceive to be an attack on a black woman of color as a potential VP pick. And when I say they, I mean Team Dodd and those who did not think that Harris was a good pick not because she's black, by the way. And this is what is so disingenuous about this argument. Chris Dodd and those surrounding him and aligning with him did not believe that Kamala Harris was the wrong pick because she was a woman of color. In fact, they argued for other women of color. She was not under assault because she's a woman of color. She was under assault because they perceived her to be what she is, disloyal and politically ambitious, loyal only to herself and her own ambitions. And they sent this out to news divisions, the heads of news divisions, editors and chiefs, bureau chiefs, political directors, editors, producers, reporters, and anchors. This is the media handicap at its core, because if you think they don't take these things seriously, you're absolutely out of your mind. They do. It's the subject of this puppy, news coverage for the vice presidential candidate. August 6th, already knew the vice presidential candidate. Okay? In the attempt, because it was going, that last move effort was, again, an attempt to derail this. And then those other forces in DC really thought they did, at least, they had a real shot at derailing it. And that Susan Rice or Bass or somebody would be it. All right. We are reaching out now because we are about to embark on a historic moment once again. Having a woman on a presidential campaign ticket. While you have already done significant reporting on the process, we know you are actively preparing for coverage about the specific Democratic vice presidential nominee. Given how few women have reached this point, the sometimes disappointing coverage of the process to date and the double standards we've seen in the public and media expectations of women leaders over the years, and even more so for Black and brown women leaders. We wanted to respectfully share some thoughts with you about the media's role in the scrutiny and coverage of women and women of color candidates in general, and the vice presidential candidate in particular. We do this today without knowing who Joe Biden's choice will be, as it allows you to consider your coverage in the context of these important societal issues without the additional considerations that a specific candidate's personal story may bring. Our country and your newsrooms have learned a lot since the killing of George Floyd, yet what we didn't learn was of the other tapes. What we didn't learn were the other tapes, because there is not only not a double standard, that's actually not true. There is a double standard. But it's like not in the direction that it's not in the direction that they claim it to be. We've learned a lot since the killing of George Floyd and the subsequent protests for racial equality that his death spurred. For the first time in too many years, there was a national conversation about what real systemic racism means. I haven't heard it. There was a real conversation about what real systemic racism means? Because I have yet to hear this defined accurately and by a definition that is supported by empirical evidence. And how it insidiously creeps into stereotypes and tropes that are common in our everyday lives. We know from public reporting that many of your newsrooms had internal conversations about your coverage, your diversity, and your editorial judgments. Good and thoughtful questions were raised. How the hell would they know about all of this stuff? Because there's an incestuous relationship between the left, the activists on the left, the party that represents them, and corporate media. They are, in fact, all one of the same, with all of the same beliefs and cultures and systems and goals. They just have different roles. Same goals, different roles. Same goals, different roles. Okay? Good and thoughtful questions were raised often by your own journalists about how you could produce news coverage that took systemic bias out of the equation. And each of you took action. While there's still work to do, that action included being more careful about the choice of narratives for stories, including more Black people and people of color on the front lines of reporting and behind the scenes producing and editing. In short, the times and the experiences made you the most powerful people in media. Stop and think about your role in perpetuating inequality and the opportunity you had to promote inequality and simple justice with your reporting of the news. This is like really Twilight Zone kind of crap. They are the big media hate machine for a reason. They are the most divisive force of hate in this country, using fake, phony narratives that are dangerous lies like the murder of Michael Brown to push the goals that they are stating and impressing upon them when it comes to covering Kamala Harris as the vice presidential nominee. So what they're asking for is not the truth. They're not asking, and by the way, reporting the truth would address issues of remaining racism in the country, because these fake narratives that paint one race against the other, they fuel it more. It does more to encourage hatred between races, for them constantly to put one under assault and lying about others to advance that assault. You know what I'm saying? Like, it constantly makes people feel like some force in society is out to get them, which causes them to hate the other because they view the other as the one who is behind it, or, you know, or at least the beneficiary of it. And it makes the situation worse. It is making the problem worse. We are calling on you to do this same with this next historic moment. A woman VP candidate, and possibly a Black or brown woman candidate, requires the same kind of internal considerations about systemic inequality as you undertook earlier this year. Anything less than full engagement in this thoughtful oversight would be a huge step backward for the progress you have pledged to make to expand diversity of thought and opportunity in your newsrooms and in your coverage. So anything less than full-on shilling, the full promotion of lies Because that is what they did over this time period that they're talking about. They didn't dig into the George Floyd case to see if there were other cameras with other angles that captured different footage that Keith Ellison was hiding from the American public. They shilled in the interest of fighting systemic racism, which nobody can define. They shilled, and those tapes went unseen for months and months and months. Precincts burned, cities burned, businesses were destroyed, cops were killed, cops were assaulted, babies were killed, people of color were killed.
But if the roles were reversed.
If the roles were, forget about it. Anything less than that is a backward step. The burning of cities, the murder of citizens in the streets, the murder of police in the streets, violence and disorder is not backward. That's real regressive steps in society. Women have been subject to stereotypes and tropes about qualification, leaderships, looks, relationships, and experience. And what this is right here is a shot across the bow. Don't you dare talk about her relationship with Mr. Brown. Don't you dare talk about how she even got Willie's machine, his political machine. Don't you dare. We'll come at you. You talk about that stuff, we will come at you. Those stereotypes are often amplified and weaponized for Black and brown women. Really? Really? I mean, really, is that true? I mean, really, if it is, and I don't see it because I'm a white man, I'm willing to be open to that. I just don't see it. It was Kamala Harris who falsely accused Brett Kavanaugh of being a serial sexual predator, a gang rapist. He's a white man. Attempts at legitimate investigations of a candidate have repeatedly turned into misguided stories that perpetuate impressions of women as inadequate leaders and Black and brown women as worse. As what? What does worse mean? The hell are you talking about? Bad leaders or worse? I think we should, what else could they mean other than her personal life that they don't want to discuss? I don't even want to discuss it. To be true, there is too much outside of personal lives. Never. What up, Howard? Personal lives never interest me. I don't care what Donald Trump did behind Melania's back. I don't give a damn. I'm not God. He's a billionaire man who also happens to think women are pretty. Oh my God. If you think folks, if you think, and you know what? You know who's like, I know, right? Right? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I don't care, honestly, what Bill Clinton did, unless it's with young girls with Jeffrey Epstein, because that's totally different. That's another level. Mm-hmm. I do care that a candidate or a public official may take money from bad people and then not prosecute those bad people. And don't worry, I saw you comment before. I will hold fire, and I'm intentionally holding fire. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not gonna squeeze the round off too early. All right. I do care when somebody is supposed to be in a top cop position, but who they go and prosecute depends on who's in the Rolodex for the donor contributor list. I do care if institutions are abusing children, but because those institutions give to offices and reelection efforts, they don't get prosecuted. I do care when scumbag landlords don't abide by the law, mistreat their tenants, but because the top cop got money from them, they don't get prosecuted. I care about that stuff. I don't care about her personal life. But these are definitely shots across the bow. Don't you dare talk about her personal life. There are multiple ways that media coverage over the years has contributed to the facts of the lack of diversity and at the top of society's roles. For example, reporting on a woman's ambition as though the very nature of seeking political office, or any higher job for that matter, is not a mission of ambition. It's not, folks, it is not whether or not they have ambition. You actually have to have some crazy ego that you want to stroke to even run for a lot of these offices. You obviously are ambitious. It's what you do in the name of that ambition that makes you a moral or immoral person. Not your personal sex life, not any of that. Do you look the other way because the powerful drove you to where you are now? Do you look the other way when they are guilty of gross injustices? Do you have different standards of justice for the lowly people who can't defend themselves because they don't have a microphone, they don't have money, they don't have powerful political friends? Do their lives come at the expense of your political ambition? Number 2, relationships with partners, staff, colleagues, and donors are characterized differently if the woman is not seen as subversive or supportive. Women on whether reporting on whether a woman is liked, a subject metric at best, as though it is news when the likability of men is never considered a legitimate news story. You have got to be kidding me. Donald Trump's favorability rating was not constantly in the headlines in 2016. His likability factor coming into this election is not constantly a story. You have got to be kidding me. This is a joke, right? The truth is, his favorability and her favorability, and I mean her by Hillary Clinton, were both, again, in the dookie. It's just that his was a little bit better in actual battleground states than hers, and hers was a little bit better in blue states. So she racked up higher vote totals, disproportionate margins in blue states, and he racked it up where it mattered, while she avoided and ignored them. I don't find any of these criticisms to be very valid. And I don't think that it's because I'm a white man that I do. All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break. When we come back, we'll finish reading this ridiculous list, and then we'll talk about the economy and take some of your questions on Kamala Harris as a VP pick. All the best. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me on Twitter if you don't already, and you can do so right there at People's_Pundit. If you're talking about media bias on Twitter, folks, you're talking about just blatant corruption, do not forget to tag it. #MediaHandicap. If you see them pushing BS like the murder of Michael Brown because they're afraid to call out Kamala Harris on her lies, or Joe Biden on her lies, or Elizabeth Warren, for that matter, who also pushed that fraud on her lies, don't forget to tag it with Big Media Hate Machine, because they are the biggest machine for hatred in this country. If we didn't have a corporate media, then we wouldn't have as much division as we have in this country. That is 100% a certainty and a belief in my mind. And in fact, their job is to make us hate each other so we don't see what they are doing collectively to all of us. All right? Anyway, don't forget to like the page on Facebook, People's Pundit Daily, and don't forget to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily on YouTube. All right? I'm going to leave you guys for 2 minutes. I'll be back. This is Bad Habit by the Grammy-considered band Bowen Band.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
us a way to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear overnight, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
All right, and we're back with Inside the Numbers with People's Pundit. Thanks for watching, folks. I'm People's Pundit, Rich Barris. You guys can follow me at People's_Pundit on Twitter if you don't already. All right, let's take a look at some of the, like I said, we'll take a look at some of the economic indicators. We'll kind of, there's two of them. We'll kind of get through them pretty quick. And then we'll hit up some of your questions we missed from yesterday, some good questions. And we'll talk about Joe Biden's pick for VP. So get your questions in about it, whether it was a good pick, bad pick. Let's talk about specific states. You got questions about polling, whatever it may be. Hit me up on it. We'll answer it. All right. So that's what we're going to do. First and foremost, folks, consumer price index today. All right. Posted the largest gain since February. And it was a little bit, even though they round up. If you look at the tens of percentage points, which I always do because I'm a nerd. If you look at those, you'll see they're just a little bit higher than the previous month, which was also a 0.6 percentage point gain. But CPI has recovered nearly all of its losses during the COVID-19 shutdown. We need labor, the labor market to do that. That's what's missing, as you guys all know I've been saying, all right? The consumer price index for final demand rose as seasonally adjusted, 0.6 percentage point in July, doubling the forecast in the largest gain since January. That large gain follows another 0.6 percentage point increase in July and June, recovering all but 0.1 percentage point of the total losses during the shutdown. Remember, here on Inside the Numbers in that PPD, we do not say because of the pandemic. A virus is a virus is a virus. It does not stop economics. We do. Decisions made incorrectly by the White House and the states caused that. All right. And by the say the White House, I say that he obviously provided cover, folks, to these people to do something never done in the history of the world before. Okay? It was an ahistorical action. And if he never said, go to the microphone, Deborah, go to the microphone, Anthony, go tell them to shut down their economies. We're going to slow the spread of the coronavirus. They would have never have been able to do it. Forecasts for the CPI range from a low of 0.2 to a high of 0.5 percentage point. The consensus was 0.3 percentage point. All right. Before I get into on Tuesday, which we are going to look at, the 1 year here, as you can see, a very big dip during that period of gray, which we indicate as recession. We are pre-forecasting that the recession, the National Economic Bureau of Research, will conclude that this recession ended in May, maybe June, the latest. All right. This was not a legitimate recession, an organic economic recession. The Bureau of Economic Analysis has already stated the first quarter dipped 5% in GDP growth, but only because of the stay-at-home orders at the end of the quarter. Had the stay-at-home orders not been in place, GDP would have grown at a larger than expected pace, and the slowdown that media hyperventilated about for months and months and months before they were able to latch onto COVID like a virus particle latches onto the inside of your nose. That's the way they are. We should, right? They're like virus particles that latch onto the cilia, which are the little noses, nose hairs. That's what I liken these people to, viruses. It would have never happened. So we are already pre-forecasting, as you see some of the local regional feds doing, that this thing ended in May. So that is why if you go to People's Pundit Daily, you will see the shaded gray areas, which indicate prior recessions. As you can see here, you will see that that is over in May. All right. Clearly a V shape in the CPI, also a V shape in the PPI, which we will look at in a second. On Tuesday, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the producer price index for final demand rose a seasonally adjusted 0.6 of a percentage point in July. That too doubled the forecast and was the largest gain, as I think Ashwin asked me about yesterday, since October 2018. That gain recovered all of the -0.2 and -0.4 readings in June and May, respectively. Okay, so what does that mean? It means, look, some inflation is good. Okay, there's really no other way to put it. Some inflation is good, and dropping and decline in inflation is no bueno. All right. So to see these things, and some of this stuff has really kind of lagged for a while, and they have. So we really needed to see, what's up, Roro? We really needed to see some indication that prices were rising again because it shows demand for goods, and we are a consumer still driven economy. Are we not? We are, right? Let's take a look at the producer price index real quick, even though I just gave you the headline. Let's look at that. All right. And we'll take a look at the chart real quick. That, again, 0.6 of a percentage point, doubling the forecast, largest gain since October 2018, and that recovered all of the June and May declines. Forecasts for the PPI range from a low of 0.2 of a percentage point to a high of 0.6. The consensus forecast was 0.3 of a percentage point. The gain was led by a 0.5% gain in prices for final demand services. The index for final demand goods also increased by 0.8. That is smaller, however. So it is disproportionately impacted by services. All right. Here is the entire average going back to January 1913, entire series. Sorry. This is the level. Unlike, I think I just showed them the CPI rate of increase. That's why it's a little bit different of a graph. That was the percentage points for CPI. The monthly changed, right? Month over month. This is the actual level of the index. Blue indicates what they call the core, which is final demand, less foods and energy. That came in at 5%, 0.5 of a percentage point. That also beat the consensus, which was for flat. The range was for flat, so only a gain of 0.2. So it was a nice big beat. Look at the 1 year. All right. Clearly, it is a V, not quite up to, well, the core is. But the overall for final demand is not quite there yet, but it's getting there. And that's because you really have to go back. There was indications. This is what those hyperventilations were all about. Of course, this is just one indicator. But there was hyperventilating over whether or not there would be a slowdown. All right. First quarter, worth noting. First quarter, and I wish I had the GDP chart up handy. First quarter was a throwaway quarter under Barack Obama. It was always weak, weaker than the rest of the year. And actually, over his 8 years, at least twice negative. Off the top of my head. Could be more. Always a throwaway weaker quarter. Only to see the second and third and fourth combine to a gain for the year. But it was not uncommon under Barack Obama's administration to see a negative first quarter. This was the first negative quarter under Donald Trump. When Donald Trump took the reins in January 2017, the very first quarter reading for gross domestic product was the first strong reading for first quarter we have seen in 8 years. In his first full year, it was the first year of solid growth above, I believe it was like 2% or something. There was never a quarter weaker than that. Whereas Obama would, like I said, often get like a negative, a Q1, or a very weak, 0.1, 0.2, whatever it may be. And then the rest of the year would have to make up for those losses in the first quarter. That was not going to happen if COVID didn't shut down. It's not my opinion. It's in the press release for the Bureau of Economic Analysis. It was not going to happen. All right. So I wanted to blast through that real quick because we took our break late and there are some really good questions. So that is the economic news du jour, folks. Markets kind of sold off a little bit yesterday. The futures obviously pointed to a pretty solid gain for today. We'll take a look at them and see. If you guys haven't noticed, the Dow is now again flirting with the 28 level, right? So we're on our way back, at least market-wise. And all indexes are up right now. Just looking at Apple, almost 11%, Microsoft, almost 6%, Alphabet, 6% change. Those are point changes. Apple up 2.5%, Microsoft up 3%. Excuse me, I'm Rubioing out over here. Alphabet 1.5%. Hewlett Packard, 0.2, no big deal. Facebook, Oracle, 0.5 percentage point in the green. Facebook up 2.25 almost. Amazon up 2.25 almost. Exxon and Mobil is down. Energy has struggled. Merck and Company up over 2%. Indexes, the Dow up about almost a point, about 240 points. Almost a percentage point. They are up. It is up 240 points. NASDAQ up over 200 points, right? So almost 2%. The S&P 500 up almost 1.33% with 43 point gain. The Russell 2000, which is a little bit more volatile, right, guys? You know about the Russell. We've done this before. Up a point. The CBO volatility index down. It's at 22 right now, roughly. That's nice. Overnight, by the way, the Nikkei 225, that was up like 93 or 94 points. On the Hang Seng Index, 142. Take a look at your 401ks. We did just a little bit ago. It's pretty nice because, you watch it during the pandemic. I'm not a seller panicker. I used to be in the industry. Numbers have always been my thing, so there's a lot you can apply that to. I used to be in the industry. I used to love Wall Street. It's kind of fun. Right? Boys Club, but kind of fun. And I left before the Great Recession because it was freaking obvious and it was coming. All right. And I'm trying to warn people and the big wigs don't like that. So we butted heads and that's how that happened. All right. So in any event, I'm not a panicker, but it still sucks watching the Dow collapse day after day after day after day, shedding this much, that much, the other thing. And you're like, oh. But in my office, I used to have a picture behind me on my desk of a hypothetical before the Great Recession. If you would have taken $100 and put it in the Dow and just let it ride, right? It's the Dow index, right? And just let it go, how the index would have performed with your $100. And that was my way of telling clients, don't be a panicked little wussy. Yeah, I was looking for the right word. Chill out. You don't make money by buying high and selling low in a panic. Chill out. So if you haven't looked at your 401k lately, or your IRA, check it out because it's nice and it's good to see some good news once in a while. All right, the hell with me, the hell with my IRA. Let's talk about your questions and Joe Biden's pick. If that's it. What's the did you mute your own mic? Did you mute your own mic? You muted your mic. Yes, you did. No. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Can you unmute it? Thank you. I'll do the I can't do it. Oh, yes, I got it. All right. Let's get a question from Laura.
All right, we're going to start with some Kamala Harris questions, and then you have some polling questions and some questions about how Trump is going to deal with mail-in ballots. So starting with a Kamala question. Let's see. Where are they? All right, DC perspective. Talking about Kamala Harris is a sex object and as a promiscuous person going to backfire.
Jeez, man, somebody had to go there. I would lay off that stuff. Lay off it. I would. I wouldn't touch it, folks. I wouldn't touch it. It's not worth it. Maybe you can if you want, but the campaign, stay away from it. Nobody gives a damn what Kamala Harris did with a married man on her way up the ladder. We know. Nobody cares. They care about this is the mistake Democrats made in 2016. Okay. Even women, many women, especially white women, didn't really give a damn what Donald Trump said about girls to Billy Bush. They may have acted like they were offended. And then, even for a few days, Donald Trump clearly dipped in polling. We actually put a plot ban on our overall chart during polling to see this was the Bush tape, the Billy Bush tape. But in the end, people care about their own lives, folks. They're there. Public servants are there to better the lives of those they represent. And in the end, voters will pick who they think is best for their own situation, or at least persuadable voters will. And then that's the danger for Donald Trump, really, is whether or not voters decide that the boat is rocking too much for me. I wasn't really ready for change. I take it back. I don't like all of this. So I'm going to go with someone I think can return to normal. The problem with that is, and Joe Biden, he shot himself with this, calling himself a transition candidate. All right. Nobody wants a freaking transition candidate, folks. Nobody wants somebody who says, I'm not really going to run the country. Somebody else is going to.
So he's announcing he's a flip-flopper constantly.
He's constant. Yeah. And that he's really not going to be the one in charge. I mean, I've never heard of somebody saying something so stupid during a presidential campaign in my life, but alas, he did. All right. And I will just say that I think that in the end, that will be, voters will make a choice. There is only a downside for the Trump campaign itself to talk about the years with Mr. Brown. All right, which is what I know they are doing. The ad, which I could play for you in a second, actually. The ad with Biden and Harris right after that Trump put out, that was the way to go. So Kamala Harris is a fraud and a flip-flopper who will do whatever it is. That's what they didn't like about Hillary Clinton. She's grossly unlikable for a reason. Don't forget why you couldn't stand her to begin with. All right. And Joe Biden is not mentally competent. So your choice in this ticket is an incompetent guy and a coreless flip-flopper you can't count on to fight for you. That is the right angle. And do we have time here while this thing loads? Can I play this clip for them and they'll know what I'm talking about? All right. This is the right tone. Okay. This is Donald Trump's campaign clip. I think he tweeted it out. And it really should be running pretty much everywhere.
Kamala Harris ran for president by rushing to the radical left, embracing Bernie's plan for socialized medicine, calling for trillions in new taxes, attacking Joe Biden for racist policies. Voters rejected Harris. They smartly spotted a phony. But not Joe Biden. He's not that smart. Biden calls himself a transition candidate. He is handing over the reins to Kamala while they jointly embrace the radical left. Slow Joe and phony Kamala. Perfect together. Wrong for America.
That is the right take. So it can only backfire if you give women voters the impression. And where I was going with the Billy Bush thing and why this is important, and I know she's sometimes wrap up these questions, but make them shorter. The thing is that a lot of women, that we spoke to during polling after the Billy Bush thing, kind of laughed during the interview and would say, do you have any idea how women sound in private when they talk about men? We got a lot of that. I mean, a shocking amount that would, I know, probably offend the little delicate sensibilities of verified Twitter. But that is the reality of American men and women. And so if you give them the impression, those women, that because they don't really care about it, and could give them the impression that it's a woman. So you're attacking a woman for something you would not attack a man for. All right. Men are allowed to do that kind of stuff and women aren't. That's not fair. If you do that, that's a problem and that could backfire. I would steer clear of it altogether. There's so much, like I said, there are bombs in that bag. And it has to do with her record as a public servant. That is what they should stick with. And on the line that he just did, which is that, there are bombs in the bag because she's a coreless and, person driven and solely driven by ambition with no compass. The compass is ambition. And that is something that you could get away with. All right. But it's not smart to go the other route, folks. It's not. The gateway pundit route, that's not smart. All right, next.
Thank you. Lamp Crow wants to know, how does Trump balance law and order with hitting Harris on her record?
That's a good question. Trump has a governing record. Okay. Every incumbent now does. He is the law and order candidate who believes in second chances. Obviously, that should be his slogan, not just I'm the law and order candidate. I'm the law and order candidate who believes in second chances. Kamala Harris is just a flip-flopper. Joe Biden is just a flip-flopper. They have been promising to do what Trump did with the First Step Act. Joe Biden has been promising it for 4 decades. It never happened. And I got clips just my own. I'm sure, what else is in the repertoire. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clips of Joe Biden talking in a supposed law and order, but using terms and phrases very similar to Hillary Clinton's super predator remark, which really hurt. That super predator remark was bad. Media gave it no attention, but it really did hurt. Kamala Harris's record, I don't have to play the clip of Tulsi Gabbard again on. So she's just simply a flip-flop. That's what she did in office. When she had a chance, that's what she did. That's it. When Donald Trump had a chance, he passed the First Step Act. All right. And signed the First Step Act. All right. And that one's pretty easy. All right. And that actually, he started doing that in that clip that I just played you before. All right. Let's get another one, Laura.
All right. Do you think Susan Rice was not picked because of her part in the Obama Spygate? Catherine wants to know.
Yeah, that's probably was too risky. Now, they don't care because ultimately they believe they have the power of the intelligence community at their back, and hacks at MSNBC, who now really are just like press release pushers for the deep state. I mean, that's what they are. So that wing actually did believe they could probably get around that. But you did have others say that it's time to move to somebody new, and that basically we don't know what Durham's going to do. So if some bomb was to drop in October, we've gone over it before. The transcript of Susan Rice, it was a big liability. I have to think that had something to do in this calculus. Had to have. Because Durham could have come out with this scathing thing. People could have found out what this fraud, the depths that they went to perpetuate this fraud on the American people. And Susan Rice has clip after clip after clip. We were digging them up too, in case, she was the pick. Clip after clip after clip of Susan Rice saying how, we have evidence, we have reasons to believe, what I saw made me deeply concerned. Donald Trump was an asset of Putin, and the Trump campaign, deeply concerned. What I saw made me think they were colluding with the Russian government to interfere with the 2016 election, when in reality, under oath, she told Congress something very different. We had no evidence, not against Trump, not against Michael Flynn. When asked why she thought, what evidence was there against Michael Flynn to think that he was like pro-Russia, she said he was critical of China. That China was the threat, not Russia. That's something bad. I mean, really, it's bad. Right, people could go back and forth. Just as a follow-up question, I guess somebody else had. People could go back and forth. Well, what about Kavanaugh? Well, Kamala. This is the box Joe Biden put himself in. And this is what I was talking about in the beginning of the show. By demanding, or, by caving to the demand that he would pick a woman vice president. You know how it is with the left. Most of my viewers understand this. Most of the followers on Twitter understand you cannot give them an inch, because if you give them an inch, they won't ask for a foot. They'll take it. They'll demand it. And if you don't cave, they'll take it. Once he conceded and caved, all right. I will commit to picking a woman vice president if I am the nominee for president of the Democratic Party. Once he did that, it was over, folks. It was over. He put himself in a box. And then from there, the demand went to, well, it must be a woman of color. And then it went to, it must be a black woman, because you need to get the black woman you need to get black turnout up. Your black numbers suck. And it just became a smaller and smaller and smaller list of people to pick from. An unknown, a radical in Florida, an unknown in California. I mean, those were the other choices. Or Stacey Abrams in Georgia. He put himself in a box that led him only, really, let's be serious, Susan Rice or Kamala Harris. Politically, I think Susan Rice would have been the better pick. And I'll tell you why. There is no reason to pick a freshman senator if your role is to calm people down and give people, you're trying to put them at ease. That was Joe Biden's job, and he blew it. More than a majority in this country know Joe Biden. They don't believe the cue ball Brian Stelter at CNN. They don't believe him water carrying. Everybody knows Joe Biden's got the early stages of dementia and his mental capacity is fading. Nobody's stupid. Not as stupid as they think they are. His one job was to pick someone who could put people at ease. At least Susan Rice was a United States ambassador to the UN. At least she was the head of the National Security Council, the National Security Advisor to Barack Obama. They picked the one person who flip-flopped in the wrong direction on every issue that will be a major voting concern to the American electorate in 2020. It was, in my opinion, the worst pick possible. And I think Republicans are right to be doing jumping jacks or cartwheels. Sorry.
My turn? All right. Let's see. Now, Reed Troutman says, doesn't Trump going along with shutdown make the Democrats' attacks on him being at fault for the COVID deaths impotent? Sorry.
Yeah, so that was always one of the dangers. And that's why, again, the ones who did the most damage to Donald Trump during all of this, and go ahead, take to your stupid little periscopes and attack me for it. But because they do, all of these Trump supporters who are trying to write, they never understood what really hurt Donald Trump about this and why their cheerleading hurt him the most is that Donald Trump won 2016, not on the backs of these people, these voters that the media obsess over, but Joe Biden doing so well with or needing to win. Donald Trump won because millions of people who are working class people who hadn't voted in a long time came out to vote for him because he made them believe that the political system may work for them again. And he told them that it were these elitists that think they're better than you. These elitists who think they're smarter than you are incompetent. And I'm going to stop them from ruining your freaking lives like they have been doing for years and years and years. I'm going to stop them from hollowing out your communities. I'm going to stop them from stripping you of the dignity of work because they sold this nation out to foreign interests and to big business. So to take somebody's advice like Anthony Fauci and other sniveling little yuppie bureaucrats who think they're better than everybody else was the worst political decision Donald Trump could have ever have made. And I have told people this from the jump. The only one who could break the bond between Donald Trump and those voters was Donald Trump himself. Nothing the media ever threw at him would ever matter. It was never going to matter. Donald Trump making a bad decision like this was the only thing that was going to do it. So everyone's got their baggage this election cycle. Joe Biden certainly does, but it is harder to make the case that Democrats are responsible for these deaths. I mean, look, Andrew Cuomo is hiding the number of how many people he killed with that executive order. Let's be real. Even the AP is reporting on it now. It went from being one of my little conspiracy theories to the AP. And it is harder. You neuter yourself when initially you jump on their bandwagon and you praise Cuomo. He did. He praised the hell out of him because Donald Trump's handshake. You ever read The Art of the Deal? Flattery, the handshake, right? You go in first like a bull in a china shop, then flatter the hell out of them. That doesn't always work in the world of politics, especially you can't apply that in this world all the time because the goal of business is profit, all right? And relationships. The goal in politics is ideology when you're dealing with the left, the advancement of their ideology. They really don't give a damn how much you flatter them, Donald. They don't give a damn. All right? And you'll flatter you back one day and then stab you in the back the next. All right? And that's how it is. So now, yes, the answer to that question is yes for all of the reasons I just stated. Makes it very difficult. Very.
Okay, so we are going in a little different direction. I promised, sir, that you would answer this question. Walker endorsed a Navy SEAL against Ron Kind in Wisconsin District 3. Is there a chance?
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance. I think a lot of what you're going to see in the House will have to do, too, with the direction of the country. There will be some incumbent Democrats who are going to have to answer for their votes on impeachment. They're going to have to answer for their support for the Democratic agenda that they promised voters they would not follow. But then you have others like that race. Okay. It's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a leaning Republican race. And if Joe Biden takes the state, then Republicans will lose Wisconsin 3. I mean, Trump is going to, a lot of this will have to depend. But I would call it a competitive race. I'd call it a competitive race if Donald Trump, and I think, by the way, even in the media polls, you're already seeing this race tighten. In Wisconsin, I saw that other question too. Is that where you're going after this? Were you going to those other ones? I'll let you say them, I guess. But the race, well, no, this way other people know what we're talking about. But I'll let you. I'm such a chauvinist, right, Laura?
Thank you so much.
Laura holds the pants in this family. All right. All right, that's it. I'm an alpha. She just points at the get him.
You're the head on the net.
That's it. But yeah, I mean, in the end, a lot of this will have to do with how these races go. We are already starting to see Wisconsin and other places. I'll leave that though. You know what? So bear with me on answering the rest of the question. Well, what do I? Yeah. So okay, Wisconsin, all these other states. I think that Emerson, like I told you guys the other day, Emerson's a little bit screwy. Because Spencer's an honest guy. He's an honest guy who does good work. But the way they weight, because they're intentionally trying not to put their finger on the scale. I don't know where that Pennsylvania weighting for the burbs came from. If you guys look, the last 3 election cycles have been 40% suburbs. I've given you the stats before on how many of the 60 plus counties are Appalachia counties. Little spoiler, it's 54. So it doesn't make much sense to me to see the suburban vote jump that much higher. What all of these pollsters are trying to say is that the suburban vote is going to come out in and the metro vote too, is going to come out in really historically high numbers. The Biden plus 15 or 14 the New York Times had a month or so ago, that was projecting that like a quarter of the electorate would be voters who never voted before. That's crazy. That's crazy, Nate. You're nuts. That's not going to happen. But Nate's not a pollster, so he's trying to do something transparent, but he doesn't really understand some of what he's doing. That's just true. You'd actually all would be really surprised how many people are taken as experts in a certain field in the media when in fact they're really not experts, all right? And it really shouldn't surprise you. Look at who the expert was in the dossier. We're talking about a drunken aide to the Brookings Institute. I mean, it's supposed to be the expert on Russia. They are very liberal with the term expert in this world. Okay. It's really something. And the definition by these experts of what is and what isn't a suburban voter or what constitutes a suburb is not a well-defined definition. It's just not well determined. So, burbs have been about 40% of the vote, about 41, 42, never 43 even yet, I don't believe, in Pennsylvania. So I'm not sure where 50, 51%, 52% is going to turn out to be a suburban voter. This is like really crazy. And you would be shocked, like when I was hinting to you how strong he was in Pennsylvania, and I saw Ashwin in the corner of my eye. We're not at 52% suburban vote. I mean, that's crazy. I don't know where they're getting that from. They're not indicating that they're going to vote at any other higher rate than the rest of the state. These are registered voter polls, so they really shouldn't be doing that anyway. Some of them are now getting in a likely voter, but if they're registered voter polls and they're showing that kind of disparity in the historical vote share versus what they're projecting, that's simply response bias. You did not reach enough people in the rural areas or even what we would generally constitute a suburb that they do not. All right. You just didn't reach enough of those people. So you have no choice but to overly represent them in that poll. Overall, it is tightening in Wisconsin. It's tightening everywhere. It was going to happen like that, folks. I told you, don't hang on to these early polls. They don't mean jack. They mean nothing. They have no predictive value. I have showed you multiple election cycles now going back to the 30s where these early polls have no predictive value. There is not only is it not true when you hear somebody say something like, no one's been this far behind this late and never gone on to win. That was never true. Wasn't true in 2016 when Dana Perino and others claimed it. It's not true today. There have been bigger leads that people have come back from. They want you to compare the lead in past elections right before election day to what you're looking at right now. That's the game they're playing. It was never worth your time to worry over these polls. And it was never worth, if you're a Democrat, you are being played. And it was never worth, like you got played in 2016, like you got played in 2018. I know you thought you were going to win the governorship in Florida. I know you thought you were going to hold that Senate seat in Florida. I know you thought you were going to hold that Senate seat in Indiana. I know you thought you actually had a chance in Tennessee. You keep allowing yourselves to be duped by this crap. It was never going to happen. And you're allowing yourselves to be duped again. If you're a Republican, don't have a heart attack over this crap. If you're a Democrat, check your hubris. Check your hubris. Because you're being played. They don't even know what the hell the electorate's going to look like right now, and neither do I. All I can tell you is that the National Voter File Analysis, if 188 million people turned out to vote, which is what Nate Cohen thinks is going to happen, right? Or roughly, I'm a little bit more, but it would be D plus 4. That's it. That's all. I don't know where this other stuff is coming from. There aren't enough voters to get 185 million like they were talking about and D plus 12. There aren't enough voters. If you're going to get to 180 something, which is crazy. There were 137 million votes in 2016. So I'm allowing them to drag me into nut job land. It's not going to happen. If 15 million more come, we're talking about 152. That's it. And it's a smaller electorate where you can really get disproportionate edges for one party or the other. If you're getting a 180, 185, which is crazy, there's not enough voters to get to D plus 12. You need Republicans and Republican-leaning independents to be able to get over there. All right? So, I mean, this is nut job land. All right? So don't let them give you a coronary over early polls if you're a Republican. Don't let them blow your head up if you're a Democrat with these early polls. Both of you guys will just be being played. The race is tightening. It is. It's tightening in public polls too. You can see it. And it's going to tighten more. Just a little spoiler. It was never Hillary plus 13, folks.
Surprise.
ABC shifted from Hillary 13 to Hillary plus 2, 3 in a week. It was never Hillary plus 13. That was bull. Do we have a little beat thing? Start beeping me. All right. Maybe we need a 5-second, 10-second delay because as the time goes on, we get closer to November. I'm going to have more I'm going to have more oopsies.
Censor you.
You're going to have to censor me, babe. You're going to have to put me on like a 10, 15-second delay. I'm telling you. All right, let's get another question. I hope that addresses a lot of other people. Don't let them do this to you with these early polls. And he is not down by 2 in Minnesota and down by 6 in Arizona. So I'm preemptively asking that answer.
Okay. So, all right. Do you think Trump not sending in the National Guard to Portland hurts him? Allison wants to know.
Yeah, another great question, because these are very hard decisions when you're the White House and you're trying to make it from a political point of view, from a governing point of view. These are hard questions. Love Bustelo, Howard. But yeah, basically, the problem with not sending in troops is twofold. One, most Americans wanted him to send in troops. They did. Democrats were kind of baiting him, and you'd hear some of these 4D chess Trumper people saying they're trying to bait you. There's no political advantage to securing Portland or Seattle or all these other cities that aren't going to vote for Donald Trump anyway. That's not the point. Trying to win over the liberal important is not the point. The point is he said he was the law and order candidate. He said he was the one who would protect normal Americans from radical leftist mobs. That's what he said. That was a big part of his justification in 2016. Make America great again was 4 words that encompassed a ton of crap, from immigration to trade to law and order. And law and order obviously was a very big one. And that's the risk he takes. You kneecapping your own justification. That's the risk he takes by not doing that and allowing this disorder. All right. Now we have seen other elections, Tricky Dick Nixon, all right, where he was able to profit off of that politically. Trump should be able to as well, but Trump is not Tricky Dick. Tricky Dick did not constantly stick his foot in his own mouth. He didn't. And at some point, Tricky Dick won over most of the country. He had a pretty decent approval rating because he wasn't like a controversial person where he was like mild-mannered and he would snap at the media. He fought with the media, but he wasn't like Trump where he opened up himself to these left-wing media attacks that solidified a negative image. So when the country went to hell in a handbasket, Tricky Dick was able to just go, I told you so. All right. And he was like nice enough, of a guy where people felt safe with him. Trump has not been able to make people feel safe with him. And of course, that's a big part of the media. They never gave him a honeymoon. We talked about this before. He never had a honeymoon period during inauguration. So they were never going to let him unify the country, but it is just part of the reality that you have to acknowledge when you try to weigh these decisions. And there was a danger of him being baited into doing that. I particularly think there was a bigger danger in allowing them to go off the rails, So either do something about it and be the president and do something about it, or just sever the western part of the damn country and let them go off the rails on their own, But Americans wanted to use military troops to restore order. They did. All right. So let's go. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't cut you.
I just want you to know that some of our viewers are fighting the good fight with their children, trying to explain why they listen to you. Besides that, Dee wants to know how do college students being online and not on campus affect the election?
Yeah, it could have a huge impact. We had Larry Schweikert on last Monday. Not this Monday, last Monday. Check it out if you didn't see that. It was, or Tuesday, what was it? Yeah, no, it was Monday because then Tuesday happened. I was like, damn, I should have had Larry on Wednesday morning. We could have talked about Arizona, which did not turn out the way these polls are showing Arizona could turn out in Maricopa County. I will say this. If you have, and we did talk about this during that interview, if you have experience in academia and whether or not you have an advanced degree or you taught maybe, or you've been somebody who went there and spoke, or you're just a student, you would see how it went, and you were politically active at the same time. They need goading to vote. They need prodding to vote. So they need to walk through whatever common area there is, Beacon Hill, whatever it may be. The common area, they need to be intercepted from point A to point B by a Democratic group of activists who will then go, here is your card. This is what you're going to do. Are you going to vote? Are you registered to vote? Do you need to be registered to vote? We need you. We need your support. Oh my God, the Nazis are coming. The Nazis are coming. The Nazis are coming. Here's your card. This is what we're telling you. We need you to do. This is the support we need you to do. Go, go, go right to that line. Go vote. They need that crap. In Gainesville, for instance, Laura, I mean, they are goaded to the tables and to the polls. So Laura she's like jumping out of her seat here to jump in. All right. But it could have a huge impact, which is why they need, and like we spoke about last week with ballots.
Thank you. All I wanted to say is, you remember when we went voting in Gainesville, and then they actually handed us a ballot, and inside that ballot was how you were supposed to vote and exactly where to put everything. It was ridiculous. It was just...
Okay, now you go, she says. Yeah, no, so Laura knows because we're typical election day voters, or, we don't always, but we used to absentee ballot vote too, but, we like it. We think it's like a ritual. You're supposed to do it. The founders wanted to have an election day, not election days, all right, or election month, all right? That is not, it's frankly unconstitutional and should be something should be done about it. But they would give you, like she was just saying, I'm getting older now. I don't, look the way I used to look. But once upon a time, 30-year-old Rich could easily be mistaken for a young college student. And in fact, I was, went back to college, like I did later in life, and constantly did get taken as a college student. And they would do that. So when we would walk through, we know how we're going to vote. We don't need to be, but they would think we are college students, and they would try to do what they do. So you need to hold their hands to get them to the polls, which is why now that they don't have that, the danger is very real. I'm not saying it can't be made up, though, because like we talked about last week, everyone gets a ballot. That's the goal in many of these places. Used to be you have to request a ballot. Now they're just going out. And I'm sure many of you now have your own stories. We've showed you photos, ballots of people who don't even live at those addresses are going there again. Student ballots are flying everywhere, or at least ballot requests. All right. But that's gone. And then obviously no verification procedures. So this is the problem with what they're trying to do this year. So they know damn well that there's a risk Joe Biden's not going to get the black vote out. They know damn well there's a risk Joe Biden is not going to get the college vote out, and they box themselves in with the COVID thing. So they need all of these ballots and requests flying everywhere. They need to suspend verification procedures like they have done in many places. And of course, they need an army of ballot harvesters. They need moratorium on bans on ballot harvesting. In most battleground states have actual codified bans on ballot harvesters. They need those bans to have moratoriums on them so they can go out and get all of these votes, because they do need to hold hands to do this. I will say this, in 2012 even, Barack Obama did manage in Florida to get a big youth vote, all right? Even though it wasn't as big as 08, but it was still big. He barely won that state, barely eked it out. And they were playing games back then. I mean, they were like grabbing people off the, in the middle of their day. It was like snatching. I'll help you fill this ballot out. It was like snatch and grab, right? It was like, it's crazy. And without them physically present, I just am wondering how they're just going to have to fill in the damn ballot themselves, which is what they will try to do. Mark my words. They will try to do it. All right. Let's get another one in there. But yeah, it could be a catastrophic if they can't pull it off. It could be catastrophic. And like Larry said on that show, crunching some very simple numbers, a 20% dip, 30%, it would be catastrophic.
Speaking of which, that ties into Allison's question. Allison wants to know, how widespread are mail-in ballots and how much will it hurt Trump?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it for Trump supporters. This is a big threat. This is a very big threat. It's why I spent a week explaining the difference between prior absentee ballot voting and mail-in votes this year, the schemes this year. And I just went over the three things again. It's a massive, massive problem. You saw some indictments come out of the Justice Department. They know it's going to be a massive problem. That was the Trump administration's way of saying, we will prosecute you if we catch you. It happens all the time. It happened before all these new changes. These new changes are to make it much easier and to make it on such a grander scale. It's a problem, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a big problem. And then the other big thing that I'm seeing, which puts my radar in the air, is how long it's taking these inner cities to cast these votes. How many votes that are coming in after the postmark deadlines are being counted. How many votes that are missing signatures in different contests are being counted. And they're not in on election day. They're coming in later. That means people are filling them in or have already filled them in. And then they're adding them to the count as the days go on. I don't know why everyone in media pretends like this is a conspiracy. They've been doing this crap in Philadelphia. They've been doing it in Fairfax County. They've been doing it in Wayne County. They've been doing it in Broward County. They've been doing it all over the country for years. If the upper echelon of the FBI is willing to break the law by violating FISA requirements and safeguards in order to persecute this guy, then local election officials who double as election officials on Tuesday and activists on Thursday are going to break the law and commit fraud. I mean, you'd have to be a fool not to believe it. They just couldn't fill in enough ballots in Broward County in 16. You remember? They just couldn't. There weren't enough votes, folks. The Broward County was the only place where Hillary Clinton outperformed Barack Obama. You think that's because she inspired black turnout? No. It's because Brenda Snipes tried to help get her across the finish line. It just didn't happen. He won too big. He won beyond the margin of fraud. But this time, the fraud is so easy. I've opened the voter files. I showed you. I used Clark County as an example for multiple reasons. One, it's a great example. Two, I knew they were going to get it. I knew they were going to get it. And it's going to be very difficult to win so much. You can offset a potential pool of 200,000 fraudulent ballots. I mean, I'm not saying there's going to be that many. I'm saying that's how many dead, inactive, and change of address flags there are on Clark County alone, which represents 68% of the vote statewide, but 80% of the dirty roll problem. The pool of potential fraud is widened drastically this election cycle. It's real shit. It's going to be a freaking disaster. It's going to be a nightmare. I mean, no matter who wins, it's going to be a nightmare. All right, last question, love.
Since it's the last question, pardon me, I'm going to ask two questions. I'm sorry, I'm so bad, but it's for you guys. You guys know I'm there for you. Lamp Crow wants to know that you polled for Susan Collins. How hard is Maine to poll? And I'm having trouble believing polls there with Biden up 1 in the 2nd district and Collins down 5. And then Sadie also would like to know, do you think the suburban soccer mom would have been upset if troops were sent to Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis, etc.?
Okay, I'll try to wrap that up. All right. So, well, I polled for someone who supported Susan Collins. So there's that. Maine is very difficult to poll because, especially in the 2nd congressional district, it's not even the entire state is not a populated state. And they're funny people. I love Maine. I mean, right? It's such a beautiful state. They're just funny people, though. They don't like people like me. I totally understand why. I wouldn't like me either if I lived where they live. All right, so it's it's true, right? That greaseball getting off my phone, you know. So I get that. But I could only see the result that you're talking about, like where Trump is right on Biden's heels, but Collins is down in the 2nd congressional district. I can only see that happening because like areas like Bangor and that are more liberal or even moderate, they tended to support Susan Collins. They kind of like her or did. And I still think that Collins is going to be difficult to take out. I do. But the 2nd congressional district, which is much more Trump friendly and they don't like the Republican Party. So Susan Collins had the success that she had being an independent. She really distanced herself a lot from the party. I could see, though, where there maybe is a dynamic where she gets labeled as a Republican, not a Trumplican, a Republican, which makes her job harder to distance herself away from people like Mitch McConnell, who people in Maine can't stand. All right. So I can see that. I just don't yet. In the end, as we saw in 2016 and other races in 2018, in the end, those voters tend to come back at least enough. So maybe Susan Collins isn't going to win with a 65% approval rating, but maybe it'll be like a 7-point win or something. And I mean, it's very, very difficult to, clarifications. Collins is down 5 statewide. Biden's lead is 10 or so statewide. Okay. Well, what that poll would mean then is that Collins is doing that. That would tell me, Laura, right off the jump, that tells me that they disproportionately polled the areas I was just telling you about. So, and that's why they blew the Democratic primary this time. If you want to know how hard Maine is to poll, look at the polls in the Democratic primary alone. How did Biden outperform? He did better outside of Bangor than anybody thought. You cannot reach these people. Go look at Maine precinct by precinct on a map, all right? Or township by township, whatever. They call it something else though, but go look at it on a map. There are so many of these little precincts scattered all over the place. And it's like 100 votes here, 150 votes there. It's hard, folks. It's really, really hard. And you could go from the central part of the state to the eastern part of the state, and on the way there have totally different voters. And then, there's also the old French Canadian working roots, and they're very skeptical of pollsters. It's tough. But especially the more conservative voters, I just also too see a lot of people. I can see a state like Maine where there's a lot of people in the 2nd Congressional District who are independent, working class, or maybe moderate, working class, went for Trump in 2016, but participated in the Democratic primary in 2016. I mean, in 2020, I'm sorry, excuse me. And then they're not going to come back to the Democratic because they don't like what they're seeing. So they'll wind up jumping back. Maine is that independent. It is. And it's a very tough state to poll. Very. Trump's got the 2nd Congressional District. I really believe that. Maybe he's not going to get it by 10 points, but he's going to get it. And he may even do a little bit better in the 1st because Collins is on the ballot. So there's going to be a vote there. I don't know. If it's that tight for Collins, you got to give it to Collins. And you just have to. All right. But with Trump, let me just say, with Trump, why maybe he's not doing better there statewide. How much attention, folks, even before COVID came along, I told you guys, he's got to be hammering these whiter northeastern states that are economically depressed that Democrats destroyed through their local leadership. They destroyed them. You can't just say, well, they did that and expect a massive change, sea change. You have to go and do it. It takes work. It takes physical face-to-face work. And they're not doing it. He's not doing it. And now COVID came, so he allowed them to kneecap him to be able to do it. And I would, if I was him, I would tell them all to kiss my butt, and I would go on the campaign trail and I'd do outdoor events, and that's it. That's what I would do. All right, because he's got to. He's got to. All right. What's the next? Oh, and the last one. Well, right. Okay, Sadie, that's the person Democrats are trying to would say, we're bait them into doing this. And then when something goes horribly awry, they want them to go, oh, the humanity, that's what they want. That is exactly it. However, they'll secretly think to themselves, oh my God, I don't want those freaks in my neighborhood. And they know it. So the question becomes, are they going to feel, at risk? That their community's at risk because Donald Trump's not doing anything about it? Or will the virtue signaling win out? And I ultimately think when it comes to me, my opinion, I ultimately think you're just not going to win that virtue signaling upper crust white woman who's in a higher income suburb. You're just not going to win them anyway. Not a lot of them anyway. What you need to do is your allegiance to your average American woman voter that you told you would keep her safe. And ultimately, when it comes to voters, they may not even agree with what you do, but they will respect and support you because they know where you stand and they know what to expect from you, and you keep your word. And I've always been a big believer that is always a bigger danger in not keeping your word. All right. But that's great questions. If Laura didn't get to them today, she's already jotting down. If Laura didn't get to them today, we'll cycle them along. In case you guys haven't noticed, I've been going over and I've been trying to leave more time because I don't want to get in a position where I'm in a rolling snowball of questions. That's the point of this show, is to answer your questions. All right. So Ashwin will get you tomorrow. That's what she's jotting down. Let me make sure I say. But it's 12:08. If we didn't get to them, we will tomorrow. All right. On Wednesday, 2:00, folks, 2:00. Barnes and Barris at 2:00, right here on People's Pundit Daily's YouTube channel. So don't miss that. If you and DC, I know you were in here before. You're like, wait a minute, isn't this Barnes versus Barris? And we had to send him a message. 2:00, DC, 2:00. Don't miss it if you don't already. We got so much we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about different question designs, how you can design a survey and skew the survey, how possibly can we ask questions and tailor questions to go after people who are feeling the pressure from social desirability bias. We got loads of stuff. As a matter of fact, let me give the lineup real quick before I bug out of here. just in case you guys want to know what we're going to talk about here. Topics that we're absolutely, talking about we were going to hit, and then of course we'll talk about updates on crowdfunding for the Rust Belt poll. YouTube wants too much of your money. I'm just not paying them that much money. I mean, that I would have to like double charge you for the poll. I would have to double crowdfund for the poll. That's crazy. All right. We're going to also talk about whether or not you guys would like to see us add vaccine questions to the poll, how racial views may have changed. We'll talk about the history. CBS YouGov releasing a lot of stuff with their tracker. We'll talk about the history of their polling. Marist has a high ranking from He Who Should Not Be Named. We're going to talk about their history and how well they polled over the years. Not very well. Spoiler alert. Importance of the neighbor voting question, right? Which is why we're going to tailor our own, but that's to try to solicit the degree of social desirability. All right, how they're missing these blue collar voters potentially. We were just talking about in Maine, current polling, and then the use of maybe what are unconventional indicators in election forecasting. All right, so we're just all over the place today, but it's going to be great. And Robert and I had like this, we went on this tangent over the weekend. We were talking and we were talking. How long did we talk? It was like hours. I had to finally end it when the storm came and I left my new mower outside. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to get wet. All right. So, yeah, we have a lot of great ideas. So we'll come back at 2:00 is my point, if you can. All right. So thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm the People's Pundit, Rich Barris. Thanks for watching. You guys can follow me on Twitter at People's_Pundit right there. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel at People's Pundit Daily, which we still need you to do, which we hit that milestone, but we still, of course, need and would like you to do that. And like the page on Facebook if you are a Facebook user. All right. And of course, the ultimate way to support the show is to subscribe to People's Pundit Daily, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. Right. Get some data for your dollar. And we thank all of you who have done that since we started this show. Clearly an uptick. And we love you for it. It's amazing. It's how we're able to do this.
We got to hang out with Howard.
And Howard, man, gonna get together soon. All right. Love you all. Talk to you soon. See you at 2 if you're going to be with Barnes and Barris at 2, or see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. We're going to stick with this. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the best, folks. Kick 'em rocks.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker.